And here in the Rise News, we've been reporting how Nigeria and Cote d'Ivoire have been pushing for stronger economic ties to create more jobs for youths in both countries. At the second edition of the Nigeria-Cote d'Ivoire Binational Commission meeting, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo pushed for stronger partnerships that will help them stem the massive migration of youths to other countries. Both countries signed a set of new agreements which cover agriculture, digital economy, education, consular and immigration matters, prevention of human trafficking, and many others. Osinbajo says as two of the largest economies in the economic community of West African states, ECOWAS, Nigeria and Cote d'Ivoire are duty-bound to cooperate in the interest of its citizens and the rest of the sub-region.
This second session of our Binational Commission gives us the opportunity to reaffirm our wish to deepen friendly relations and to further strengthen and diversify our bilateral ties. Our shared values of democracy, protection of human rights, and our aspirations for peace, progress, and prosperity must continue to be the guiding principles for our cooperation, for mutual benefit, and for the well-being of West Africa.
The potential of growth of our commercial relationship is way beyond the numbers we have now, and the language barrier cannot be an explanation. We, as a government, should boost the cooperation by creating an adequate environment, but most of all, encouraging our private sector to be more active, as they are the one that at the end of the day create added value, wealth, and jobs our people need.
The agreement covers issues of prevention. It also covers issues of enforcement. It also covers issues of return and rehabilitation of victims. And it also offers, covers issues of repatriation as well, repatriation of assets that are connected to issues of trafficking in persons.
We believe that if the Memorandum of Understanding on Consular and Migration Matters is signed, that it will help us a great deal in checking the menace of irregular migration, smuggling of migrants, trafficking in persons, irregular transhumance movement.
And to discuss the importance of these trips and how they actually impact the Nigerian economy, let's bring in a Rise News analyst, Dr. Sam Amadi. Dr. Amadi, thank you so much for being here. Before we talk about President Muhammadu Buhari, who has been busy traveling a whole lot, let's talk about that agreement we've just signed with Ivory Coast. The fact that the Vice President described it as the model for bilateral relations for other African countries within the continent. Your understanding of that statement and why you think this is?
Well, of course, we've had several binational commissions, usually with the Americans and Europeans, and lately with South Africa. The nature of bilateral commissions is to try to focus attention on priority areas that usual general bilateral meetings do not carry. So after this is a bilateral commission means that middle level, top level officials are not going to come together periodically to follow through. So what he's trying to say is that if you look at most of our relationship has been we've signed bilateral with European countries, but we've not really used bilateral commissions to drive bilateral relationship with our neighbors. And therefore, the point is, look, once you have a bilateral commission, so it means that you're building a bureaucracy around those strategic issues. So there will be follow-up, feedbacks. So after this big talk with big guys, the president, the vice president goes back home. So these diplomatic officers sit back and pick these pieces and work out programmatic interventions to drive. For example, we're talking about creating a kind of partnership with economic development, cocoa, coffee. They are strong, so we can both explore how to export more. That means you need to bring agri people, commerce people, infrastructure people to create that level of synergy. So he's right to saying this is a model, but the question is oftentimes after the constitution of this bilateral commission, you discover that follow-up actions don't get as intense as they ought to be after the photo ops and all the ceremonies.
Because the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, did sign one in 2013.
Yeah, he did to several countries and issues arise, but really...
With Ivory Coast.
Okay, that's the point. Sometimes they get defunct, nobody follows through. So a new person gets an idea, we put them together, come back, ceremony goes off, and officers go back to their schedule.
You look at AFTA and the rest, and you think that the continent would have made great progress, in intertrade relations and what have you. But it looks as if it's still at the teething, stage. And with this second edition of the African Fair in South Africa, do you think there will be some kind of acceleration in Afro trade within the continent?
Absolutely. I think the real problem is that Africa has the lowest intra-trade of any continent in the world, including Middle East and Asia. So, and that low level of intra-trade means that we can't develop, because if you look at Europe, Asia particularly, they have a lot of trading going on among themselves, and that helps to grow the regional economy. And so we do more trading with outside Africa. And the question is, policy instruments are very weak. AFTA is trying to converge our economy. But if you look at speed on the protocols, on regulatory issues, competition laws, the speed is very slow. We're not converging enough. We're not even strengthening those economic ties and quickly developing our rules and regulations internally to converge to a central issue. So we want to follow Europe, for example. Europe has clear normative framework. They have articulated a sense of Europeanness in terms of, so if you're going to join Turkey, wherever you are, Greece, you line up with your human rights provisions, your economic trade, tax, competition law, even financial management and regulation. But here, we're not moving that fast. So the problem is that infrastructure again, look at the road between here and Togo to Cote d'Ivoire. So if
which runs through Lagos, Badagry.
Absolutely, you're going to be trapped in Lagos traffic for like 6 hours. That's not the kind of infrastructural layout to drive intra-trade, greater intra-trade in Africa.
And no rail line to
link. So if you're going to be having those fairs, I mean, they look like opportunity for business, private sector, but they may not create enough momentum and volume enough to create that. At least about 15%, 20%. We are almost like less than 2% at some point in trade. If you look at Asia, over 25% of their volume is
even in Europe, where you see, there's a set rule to make priority anything you need to import. Make sure you're getting it from other European nations.
Standards.
And their prices are standardized.
Yes, it is. They have a standard. So what do we need to do right now? Aside from signing the AFTA agreement, what are those little things we need to put in place so that we will see progress on the continent from trading?
First, I don't think African economies should focus on economic growth as a priority, not politics. That's number one. Number two is that you need to get in the African bureaucrats, technocrats, professionals, businessmen, to lead. Then government themselves will converge their price. So what we're having is an African integration that's based mostly on politics and diplomatic issues, not driven so much by strong economic policy. Like Europe, where you see a lot of coherence in terms of idea, one Europe, we need to create a sense of an Africanness. So that Africanness drives that convergence. So common citizenship, for example, an European can move from place to place, not just the issue of passport and entry, issue of citizenship, a sense that they can approach the courts like any other European. Look at the European human rights, look at the European court in Strasbourg. So we need to build these institutions in a way that it becomes easy for natural convergence of these institutions, and then deepen productivity. Most of our economies are not running on production, they're on consumption, on importation. If countries like Nigeria and South Africa, with a big economies, Egypt, for example, in the northern part of Africa, come together and create a much more productive economy, then the spillover on the smaller economies will create a level of competition within Africa, and then you see a greater flow of freight. And then we should be bold to reduce tariffs. We are still hoping
especially
to make money from intra-African tariffs.
I wanted to say that ECOWAS has not been able to, take this economic integration very seriously and the rest. More than 40 years of it.
That's even terrible because ECOWAS is a much more, contiguous unit, and Nigeria is a big player there. So fear two things. Nigeria has brought a burden on the cost. They fear that any convergence favors Nigeria. Nigeria is bearing the cost, and if Nigeria does not work hard, it lose because it's allowed dumping, and that's part of why.
And that's part of the fears from the Manufacturers
absolutely.
Association, especially as it concerns after. And of course, we do know that ECO.
But if you improve your productivity, then Nigeria will leverage on that market. So I think that Nigeria needs to play key role to get this West Africa particularly converge. Look at Lagos and Benin. There's a lot of cultural contribution. Trade and agricultural flow is very more rapid. But the question is that we are not creating the wealth.
That trade is smuggled trade, you know.
Coming from France and the other European countries. But we need to trade locally manufactured things, goods, value additional goods, like for example agriculture, you know, maybe agro products that have real, you know, components that are Nigerian or Benin. So what Benin is doing is sending us foreign products and then dumping the market. We need to do more in stimulating trade and economic development. So you're trading on products that are national of ECOWAS, not products that are imported and they're smuggled through cheaper
And
routes.
with the currency union, the ECO, would it help in this area more than 2-3 decades?
Well, it was supposed to have come into
if they can solve that problem, because a common currency helps you for purpose of logistics, ease of balance of trade and transactions. But the question is, it has to be a currency that's strongly backed.
Particularly with France dabbling into it,
so
using Cote d'Ivoire.
You can't trade Naira for maybe something that's not even up to Naira. So it becomes a question of why should you concede national sovereignty in terms of a currency and the exchange values and also monetary policy for a weaker, like euro and, for example, when pounds, whenever I say EU, it looks like almost matched, so you could, you know,
but there's still controversy surrounding the ECO with the Francophone countries really dropping the CFA franc for the ECO. But you know what? Convergence issues here and there, but like you have said, it would help us.
All right. Dr. Sam Amadi, a RISE analyst and lawyer there. Thanks for joining us on Newsnight.